Welcome back to the Everything Property Podcast. Today's guest has not only cemented himself as the leading commercial buyer's agent in Australia since founding his business about 8 years ago, he's also built a personal property portfolio worth $75 million, comprising of about 29 properties and 68 tenants, depending on the day and what he's doing with his acquisitions. You'll find him in one of four places: the office, working, the gym, working, the ocean, surfing, or my personal favourite, Greece, holidaying, and maybe doing a bit of work too. Scott O'Neill from Rethink Investing, welcome to the Everything Property Podcast.
Good to be here, mate. Thank you for having me.
That's all right. It's good to finally be able to get you on. You're in Greece for the last, 3-4 months. He's got a lovely tan for those of that join in on and have a look on YouTube. You're glowing with that Greece sun, man. It must be nice to be able to get over there for a few months every year, right?
Yeah, no, look, the wife's half Greek, so she grew up there. So, and winter in Sydney is a bit average, so why not? That was the goal when we started investing. So, yeah, no, it was always on the cards, I guess, if it worked out.
Well, look, I've done my research and I've been listening and consuming your content for a lot of time now. So I know a lot about you. I've also got Scott's book here. I've bought the first one too, but I've got the newest, latest version. We'll get into that a bit later. But I guess our audience is wondering, who's this bloke and how's he been able to build out to a $75 million portfolio, mainly commercial, but you and your partner. So run us through your early days of, it's pretty funny. You started off civil engineering, construction management at uni, and then you're sort of working in that for a few years. Yeah,
look, I never really wanted the office job, so and I was always good at maths, so I thought, why not just do stuff outside construction management? So it was either that or going into like an economics degree, and I thought just working up in a tower seemed horribly mundane, and I don't know, I couldn't stomach that. But it turned out engineering was a lot harder, and you really underestimate the amount of hours and that sort of forever deadline. Like you've got a background in development, you'd understand it's pretty full on to have your whole career chase deadlines. Like for us, it was basically government jobs like railways and bridges and like highways and stuff like that. So the pressure was there, and every 2 years you got to pack up and move to the next big project. So that kind of job of working outside all of a sudden wasn't that attractive, and well, the money was good. That was one of the other reasons I chased it. Like as a graduate, I wanted to not be totally battling, and the engineering salaries back there were pretty decent.
What's you're coming out on? Just a bit of context. I mean, I studied architecture at uni. Yep. I think I never went into grad. I sort of moved to development, but I think the grad rate was for about 45 grand.
Yeah.
So what is it for like an engineer
So back in 2010, I was getting about 75.
Wow.
So lawyers were getting about 40 to 45 back then. So not bad, like considering, they're probably equally important professions, or, basically on the status at least. So, and then that helped, basically having a little bit, that extra 30 odd K saving per year. You could think back then that's 2 years of that, you've got half a deposit basically.
Yeah, true.
So chasing the salary was a means to an end as well. And then the future jobs after that was, it always had a bit of an idea to get a bit more salary so I can kind of put it into property rather than just chasing the love of the job. And, ended up moving into different companies like the concrete and aggregate industry. Like that was more fun, more my style, because it was a bit more business. It still had the kind of, building and construction management component. But then, again, managing people. So I was exposed to like managing people like in my early 20s. And that was hard because in construction, you're generally dealing with a bunch of rough blokes who don't respect the young guy from uni. So,
I can relate. Yeah, we rock up on site.
Who's this idiot? And then having authority over them was very difficult in those early years. But good learnings.
Is there anyone that like how do you sort of stumble across property? And obviously back then you probably don't know that it's a way out in a brand new career that's been so successful to you. So how did you sort of stumble across it, or what are your first property is when you talk about, I'll let you sort of walk people through it, but today it's probably worth in the millions, but how do you sort of stumble across that? And is there anyone that sort of you're taking some inspiration from, or that you're listening, or what makes you sort of dive into the market there?
My first inspiration was, like my parents got into it. They were the, classic negatively geared warriors, where they'd, debt up as much as they could. And we lived very cash flow poor, as grown up, like, which was kind of backwards to me. Like, it's that almost that mentality that you don't deserve to enjoy life now, it's for later. And but they had assets and but it really was only relying on them keeping jobs. Like my dad had a decent job as he was like a accountant, financial planner in the car industry, and that allowed him to have a salary to hold a couple of properties in Sydney. So that was the inspiration. I thought, all right, better go out and buy a property in Sydney because I heard the growth and started looking. I grew up. I was living near down in the Shire at the time, so I was looking at units in Miranda, which is not far from my local public school and stuff like that. So I was looking at properties around 400K, and the rent was about 400, 450, but then you had all the strata on it. And then randomly this old crappy looking house in Sutherland popped up. It was 480, but it was renting 660 because it had a granny flat. I thought, all right, 660, no strata. It was a horrible looking thing.
480 back in
2010. Yeah.
Must be nice. There's probably $1 million on top of that now and the rest, right? Yeah, okay.
Yeah. So, but it was just that extra, it worked out to be about 10 grand clear after the mortgage. Like I had to do a 90% loan, pay the LMI and all that kind of stuff back there. But, basically it was I think I put about 60 grand deposit in. There was a stamp duty concession back then as well. So I didn't have to pay stamp duty, which saved us a bit. Actually, no, there was a discount. I only paid $7K on stamp duty. So whatever the scheme was back then.
Yeah, okay, back in 2010.
Starting to forget it all now.
Yeah, before I was born. Jeez, going back so far.
Yeah, so, but no, that was the stepping stone. That grew, and that allowed me to buy many other properties. So like every time there was 300 grand equity, I'd pull out 80% of that and use it to buy again.
Okay, and then you sort of move into quite quickly unit blocks up and down the coast and stuff like that. That's because you're still, you could have definitely just went normal residential houses, but you're sort of chasing yield and chasing this mindset that asset, running it like a business. I've heard you talking about it before. That asset shouldn't be costing me money to hold. It should be putting money in my pocket, right?
Yeah. And look, again, like just having a job that I knew I couldn't do forever, I was like, well, I'm not going to, negatively gear it because then I'm further from retirement and I've got more reliance on my job. And this is before I had kids or any real responsibility too. So, you wouldn't want to load up with more responsibilities back then. So, obviously it was a cash flow goal and couldn't do that again in Sydney. So just quickly got over Sydney, which is probably the first step, that really helped me. I was living in Port Macquarie at the time, again, chasing the latest job that, offered a little bit more options. And I was doing the whole career thing. I wanted to be a CEO. I was doing an MBA, all that kind of stuff. So I was doing what it would take to play that corporate ladder.
Fair enough. Yeah. You got to chase, yeah.
Yeah, but the longer I did that, the more I realised I was just following what I thought you're meant to do, with a career. And, but then the property all of a sudden became more exciting, and it was the unit blocks that kind of made me think it was all possible because we bought it was about a 450 purchase and it was renting for like 980 a week rent. There was 4 units and they're all paying, a couple $100 each plus, some were 250, 260, and it was an incredible rental return. And again, instant like 10, 15 grand passive income after like mortgages, maintenance even. Once you wash it all out, it was all covered. And again, I thought if I just buy a few more of these, my wife's income is totally replaced. And then the next goal was to replace mine. And the unit blocks were a part of that strategy. Bought quite a few of them and then got into the strata title. So a lot of people have quizzed me like, how did I get so much equity? It was through growth, strata titling.
Just explain as well. I know how it works, but for someone at home, what do you mean by strata titling?
So it's basically buying a whole unit block on one title and splitting the ownership so then you can offer it to the market at individual lots. The benefit, it's like, using an analogy like a cake, you buy the whole cake, you sell the slices off at higher per square meter rates.
Yeah, okay. Nice analogy. Yeah.
And it really works because you're buying something that's quite hard to finance. A lot of people weren't that into unit blocks back then, but there's always someone looking for a 300 grand unit. And that was my idea. And it worked out quite well. So we were creating equity, cash flow, and basically beyond that, just having a lot of properties in the market started to really, snowball at some point.
And so you're building up, you're buying property after property, you're trying to replace your partner's income. At what's the point where you go, you either got money saved up or that you quit your 9 to 5, you're probably by that stage very well paying engineering job. At what stage or what point did you get to where you're like, I'm gonna quit, I'm gonna give obviously what was Rethink an idea a go and have a crack? Did you get to an income, or did you say, look, I've got everything on interest only loans, I've got X saved up, I can run this for 6 months and give it a crack? Or how did that sort of look?
So I was about 26, 27 around that period, and it was a very good year in growth. And I was looking at the spreadsheets, and I made about 700,000 in growth, and then about 100K in cash flow. And I thought, I've worked my ass off in this job and I'm getting a fraction of that. And this property portfolio just made all that. And, I knew I could be handy. Like, we were sanding floors, we were building kitchens, we were really involved in doing all the DA stuff. So I could do that if I needed to save money. And but the cash flow minus the mortgages was enough to get by, not well off, but we'd be able to kind of get by for years. And that was the idea. And I thought, all right, I'm out. I'm just going to see where it goes. And we just went to Europe for 6 months. Lived, pretty cheap there. Like, we weren't staying in fancy places or doing any of that stuff. But we came back with more money just from the cash flow, and that's where it really went. Oh, this actually works. And we had 20 odd properties at that stage, and we were relying on the market not to, shit itself as well. But we could see the rents were growing. That was comforting. And we always bought the types of properties that would perform well if the economy wasn't great, So, the entry-level kind of houses and units where there's always tenants. We obviously just started getting into commercial as well. So we were buying things like...
Are you at commercial? Are you that 20 or that you've got and you go that you've got commercial in that one?
Yeah.
Okay.
So we bought our first commercial in 2015. So,
okay.
I was about that same age. So bought, I think it was 2 commercials, and then that's when we, got out of work. And it was I remember calling my boss up, and, it was sort of, they were paying for the MBA as well. So it was sort of earmarked to, I had to stay there basically, like I was obligated to. But,
oh, God.
But they thought I just lost my mind, I think. Because I wasn't going anywhere. They're like, you're just quitting. And I decided I got a property thing on the side. That's it. And they didn't react great, but that was the last phone call.
What did your parents say? Because obviously my parents do, the older generations are really traditional, right? With you need a job, 9 to 5, blah, blah, blah. Like, what did your parents say when you're telling them you couldn't?
Look, along the lines of you're an idiot, basically. You're throwing a career away. I think I basically sold it to them that I'm probably just going to go back into it in 6 months' time, because I was up in Port Macquarie and I didn't want to live there at my age for the rest of my life. Like, it was great for a few years, but, average age there was about 65. So not for us, not long term. So it was a way of getting out of that town, coming back to Sydney, and then working out what to do. But in my head, I was never intending to go back unless everything went wrong.
Okay. But it didn't, and you start Rethink Investing 2015, 2016?
Yep. So around that period. So we're in Europe at that time, and what happened is my mortgage broker put us in one of those old, he referred us to the property magazines. I think it was API, Australian Property Investment, that one. And I went in it, and all of a sudden had a lot of people reach out. Like, I'm talking over 100.
Wow.
And they were like, oh, what type, how did you find those unit blocks? Like, they wanted help finding duplexes and stuff like that. And
100 warm leads, not bad to start a business, huh?
This was before the buyer's agent wave too.
Okay.
So
Yeah.
I was an accidental buyer's agent.
Yep.
I didn't know what the industry was, so I helped a few friends and family, and then when they came back for second, I'm like, all right, I'll just charge you $5,000. I'll do it because it's taken time. So the business was born out of a cash scenario.
Yeah, okay.
So, just because and it was, they were more than happy to do it. It was a very loose business at the start, but again, I was just buying the same types of properties I would have bought myself. And fast forward, how many years now? We've been running the business for like 8 years and done 4,000 plus deals now, and I think it's not far off, 4 billion in total value. So it's
yeah, because you're tracking now. I mean, from back then, it's obviously 8 years of doing anything as a business. You're gonna, if you're doing it right and you're doing it well, like you are, substantial amount of growth and stuff. But now, you guys are transacting like how many times a month?
On average, about 30 to 35.
35 transactions a month. Okay. And I got sitting in front of me as well, the book. There's obviously a first version of this, but where does that come about? Is there a reason for that, or when's the book born?
So when we started mostly residential, the business, and quickly the yields weren't stacking up for us, and we're already like in deep personally in commercial. So we always made sure we tested ourselves before with clients. So it was a big step to start talking to clients about commercial because they weren't about it. This is back when no one had any risk tolerance for commercial. It was like all the myths were there, like, oh, it's just going to go vacant forever. Oh, there's no capital growth. You can't finance it. Like all that stuff, like that's what we'd deal with. So I thought, like my experience was so different, and I just wrote a very, very basic book to say, this is our experience with the properties. These are the real realities of these myths. So we break down the myths and talk about different mindsets of like, why we're finding what this is a less risky proposition than the market feels it is, and just explaining the facts through our own eyes. And that book was almost a way of sort of cutting down the questions. And it was received quite well. It was a bit of a rush book. I felt like the first one, so I wanted to come back with the next one, just with a few more stats and stuff like that, and that's sort of where this current one came from.
Stats and you pre and post COVID era, PC and AC, pre and after, but and then you've went through and you've adjusted some of the interest rates and examples and all that kind of stuff. Okay, and you've recently as well just launched the Rethink educational course. Now there is there's quite a fair bit of residential educational courses out there, some good, some bad, some average. I'm not too across if there's any other commercial property courses. There might be, but they're not really marketed. And I've heard you say there's some interesting stats around the type of people that are signed up and doing this course.
Yeah. So the education course is like an extension of the book, but when I did it, I didn't want to just do like a light, thing that kind of just gets, people brushed over the top level facts. Like this is a really detailed course, and there's about like 60 odd pre-recorded lessons. It's got every expert you need in there, like one of the best lawyers in the country for commercial transactions, one of the best mortgage brokers in the country for commercial. Yeah. Same with insurance, same with property managers, like everyone you sort of need. And then I'm in there and we're basically doing deal reviews weekly, so we're looking at things and just recording it. So breaking down live things and showing exactly what we like and what we don't like about opportunities. And the real thing is just to make it a lot more tangible for people. So the course effectively tells us how to do our job. And, so it is a threat to the original buyer's agency, but again, like one thing I've learnt through running a buyer's agency, the more information you give out, the better, because it just creates confidence. You've got to give back, and then people give back to you. And sure, we're going to create a lot of competition. Like I'm already running into extra buyers from the course who are bidding against us on properties, but often, that's a minority situation, but more people are getting into the space, and there's only like 17, 18 odd transactions per year in commercial. Resi's got 500,000-600,000. So it's a niche little space, and
Well, it's valued at only 10% of. I think the resi space is valued at 10 trillion, and commercial's only 1 trillion. I mean, it's a big figure, but it's only 10%.
Exactly, it's very niche, very small, and that's why no one talks about it. It's there's not much room for, like, talking about buyers agencies. Like, if there was 100 commercial buyers agencies, they'd all go broke. There's just not enough transactions to really keep enough bread on the table for people. But residential, you got little micro markets in markets, and it's just a constant transaction of properties. And the thing with commercial owners is they often don't sell. Like, a lot of the properties we've bought from are from an 80-year-old bloke who's had the property since 1980. And then they sell, and the next guy will hold it for another 40 years. It's an extremely tightly held market, so it's there's not much happening a lot of the time.
Yeah, and a lot of those guys that are selling don't necessarily want a big for sale sign out the front to obviously scare off their tenants and stuff. So I feel like a lot of those transactions what sort of portion are you guys doing at the moment that are off-market transactions? Because I feel like a fair few of them would be. You go to the sales agents and they sort of ship it around to guys like you that they know have the client and have their stuff sorted, rather than just the Joe Blow run of the mill. Giving them a call on what they see on Real Commercial or something. So are you guys transacting a lot off-market, or?
Yeah, overall it's about 65-70%, and in different price points it's different. Like so in the sub $1 million range, it's about 90% off market.
Really?
And the reason we do that is if we go on market, we're going to compete against 50 people. It's not even worth our time. So we let those go through to the keeper.
Yeah.
The on market ones start sort of popping around that kind of 2 to 3 mil range. Over 1 to 3 mil type range, because they're the ones you see at those auctions and all that. Like, if they pass in, that could be a good deal to be had if we can get a bit of price off.
Yeah.
As we start getting into the very high price points, like, 5s, 10 mils, again, mostly off market. Just because, like you said, if you're buying a shopping centre, why would they put a giant for sale sign at the front, scare all the tenants? They do that a lot of the time. Like where my office is in Bondi Junction, there's big signs everywhere with some of the but like, for example, Eastgate's for sale. Like, I don't see any.
Is it?
Yeah.
Oh, there you go.
And there's no signs there, but then the Fitness First thing across the road, signs all over it. So different strategies, but the off market is gold to us, and any buyer's agent would know that.
Why do you think that there's no? You touch on it in the book, and you speak to it a little bit. You've obviously commissioned, done a lot of research yourself, but would you say just because of the size of the commercial market that there's not a lot of popularity, and then there's not a lot of data around it? But why is there so, like resi, it's so, I can, after 30 days after a sale, I can tell you what any resi property sold for in New South Wales, for example. But commercials are a lot different. Why isn't there the data on sales and leasing and that like there is in resi?
To answer it as bluntly as possible, there's no economic value for someone to create that database. Like CoreLogic, for example, it's a big business. Like, so they update the market. There's people paying $400 a month for the membership or whatever it is.
Yep.
There's a business there. If you try to do that with commercial, there's not enough volume for a business to really stay afloat, I don't think. I'm sure it'll happen, but it's all just kept within agencies. So, Ray White will have their little database full of comparables. Like, we've got our own database because we do due diligence on properties every day of the week. So we've got all the square metre rates for the rents. We've got all the sale prices per square metres. Like, would we go package that up and sell it? Who would buy it? Like 10 people. Like, there's just no real economic value, but there's a value to an investor when they're buying. So having access to that data is... it's valuable, but there's just no market for it on a mass scale. Okay, if I'm just talking from a businessman side of things. Yeah,
but that would then be a really key draw point to use someone like you guys yourself. Say if I'm buying in a whatever regional town or a capital city up in Brisbane, for example, if you guys have transacted, 10 deals there, the main agents, you've got all the data. I can ring them up. I can look who's trading in that area, but it's not I may not have that data in front of me. If I don't have all the data, I don't have all the facts, then, that's where people go down the line and maybe make some big mistakes. Have you seen anything? I sometimes ask people, some of the horror stories that they've seen. I'm sure a guy like you has seen a lot of them. But do you have anything sort of to end on that, that you've seen that has surprised you, or that has been a massive?
So the classic one I see that happens the most is, without naming companies, there's some very good auction houses in this country. So commercial. So what they do is they package up the perfect type of commercial property, which is like maybe a childcare with a 15-year lease, or a McDonald's or a KFC. They're the ones everyone wants. If you know nothing about commercial property, you're comfortable with that asset class. So you'll run at it.
On a 2% yield.
Yeah. Sounds great. And a lot of these people might have a recent inheritance, or, like the classic, the husband dies or the wife dies and there's, an inheritance, and they've got to spend $5 million. There's a lot of this stuff that goes on, like where there's $5 million plus of cash they've got to deploy in the market because they don't want to sit it in the bank. They're never going to put it into shares, these guys. It's not their risk profile. But then they go to these auctions and there's swift agents all around them saying, oh, it's a safe, ASX listed company. And then all of a sudden they overpay by $1-2 million on a $5 million purchase. So something that's worth $3 million, they're paying $4 million. It happens all the time. And like, as a professional investor, I'd love access to these clients because we could really help them not lose that money straight up. But it's the classic novice investor getting a little bit too confident in a lease profile. And, you should never do that. Like, don't buy a property for the tenant. Buy it for the property, because even these ASX listed companies, they might have a portion in 10 years' time where they mothball a bunch of sites and go, oh, we don't need this. We're going to exit this because competition's getting higher. Our costs are now making it, there's no return on money for this site. And, sure, the lease will stay there because the lease has to be paid. But once they're gone, then, it could be a forever dead site. So overpaying is probably the most common one. And then same goes with rents. Like, you might see, I call it baited leases. They're just, rents. Like, might have someone who's running a successful restaurant, and they own the premises, and they get the idea, oh, what if we pump the rent up 50%, sell it, lease it back, and we'll get 50% more on the purchase price too. So, a lot of sneaky stuff that goes on.
That's
all the time.
Okay, fair enough. All right, Scott, I appreciate that, and I think a lot of that comes from what I'm hearing. Even I'm thinking between resi and commercial. I mean, resi, I can stumble across and find a lot of data myself, whether or not I interpret that correctly to make a decision. That's another thing. But commercial buyers agents, I see, heaps of value in that just because around the data. And as you said, if I don't know the proper DD to jump in and do, then it sounds like you can be up shit creek without a paddle pretty quickly. And if you're buying in at these $1 and $2 million price points, it's not something where you can wear the cost for, if I've got a $300,000 house in Tamworth, I can wear the costs on it for a few months. But these things start to add up, right? If you stitch yourself up and you haven't done the right research or anything like that.
100%. Like, to put it bluntly, the risk is greater in commercial, but the rewards are greater. Like, if you do this right, 100% you'll make more money than residential. Like, because you're going to get 3 times the cash flow on a net basis. Instead of getting 2% net, you're going to be getting 6, 7, 8% net. So, and then the growth's similar, which we've proven in the book as well with those stats. Like, and that's something that most people don't know. Like, it's all tied to build costs and demand and zoning. Supply and demand ratios. It's all basically, similar drivers in a way. And if you're not getting if you don't make a mistake, you'll do very well. But if you get it wrong and buy that property that can't be leased, it's all over. There's no protection. So.
Good to know. I was going to ask you for to sort of wrap up, a golden nugget, a piece of information that you want to share with the audience that is high significant value. But I feel like you've touched on it there, right? With knowing your numbers, doing your DD, getting the right data in front of you to make that purchase.
Yeah, no, and the DD is extensive. So the most biggest bit of advice is like the due diligence you got to do with commercial. It's extensive, and it goes beyond common sense. Like residential, everyone knows, what a good street looks like. Don't buy in a flood zone. Don't, buy something that's getting, got settlement cracks through it. It's obvious. Everyone knows this. But commercial, like, you got to look into like upcoming DAs of future. Like if you buy a childcare, don't buy somewhere where the 0 to 4 year age group is too small for the amount of childcares, because there's not enough supply of kids to fill the businesses, and the businesses will fail. So you got to understand business, and that's so business and property and the whole development side of things. If you can get those three things covered, then it's possible you won't make a mistake.
Perfect. I'd like to end on that. Scott O'Neill, thank you so much for jumping on the Everything Property podcast. Best of luck with book sales, and interesting to watch and see how Rethink grows over the next couple of years.
Thank you, mate.
No
Thank
problems.
You.